Hey, apparently this whole live thing really is working. So also apparently, a lot of people are feeling, shall we say, a little bit of buyer's remorse these days. That's according to a brand new poll. Donald Trump, at this moment in time, is actually currently more popular than President Joe Biden. Of course, President Joe Biden has had just a few little minor, shall we say, screw-ups along the way. You know, Afghanistan, the border, inflation. We're going to talk about all of it. I would imagine a whole lot of people are a whole lot more popular than Joe Biden these days. Again, we're going to get to that. But before we get to that, I want to talk to you today about something that really is just annoying me. You look at this tax proposal, which hopefully will not get anywhere, right? Hopefully Joe Manchin continues to be the adult in the room and we don't see this thing see the light of day. But I want to talk for just a second about what it actually would do to all of us and to our economy. Hello, everyone. I am Trish Regan. Welcome to the Trish Regan Show. It's good to have you here. Do make sure that you hit the like button. Do make sure that you share this video. Please do me that favor. And also make sure you go to trishintel.com where we have lots of stories on the markets, on the economy, on politics, lifestyle as well. There every single day. And you know, I got to tell you, I was just a little annoyed last night, just a little perturbed because I came across a tweet from the President of the United States in my Twitter feed, and I'm sharing it here with you. He said, I was a little perturbed last night. I was a little perturbed last night. I don't want to punish anyone's success, but those at the top have been getting a free ride for far too long. That is Joe Biden on Twitter. And that was clearly not written by him because, well, you know, he's got a lot going on, I guess. He doesn't get to write those things. He doesn't actually tweet. But nonetheless, he's got handlers for do that. Nonetheless, that's a pretty big statement, right? And that's a pretty big thing to throw out there. They've been getting a free ride for far too long. Okay, then, you know what? Let's take that at face value for just a moment. Let's say that I agree with that. And you agree with that, Joe Biden. Then you want to change it, right? Well, if you want to change it, then what you're doing is a whole bunch of nonsense. And that statement is a whole bunch of political nonsense. And I know that because he's talking about taxing people that earn certain amounts of money, which he defines as rich, but he's not actually talking about closing a loophole for ultra billionaires, the total fat cats, the private equity bankers out there, his buddies that backed his campaign and back a whole bunch of other campaigns there in Washington. Nobody's talking about closing the loophole that they've got, and I find that super troubling. I mean, if you're going to raise taxes and your idea is to go after the wealthy, then gosh darn it, why not go after the ultra wealthy who are getting a heck of a deal when it comes to this darn loophole? I mean, don't tell me that you're really going after the rich when in fact you're going after people that are making a nice living, a good income, but you're not going after the people that you say you want to go after because I guess they're just too helpful. They're too helpful, right, to your overall campaign, for goodness sakes. I mean, this is, I call it the fat cat carried interest tax loophole. That's what it is. It's a carried interest tax loophole. It benefits the private equity industry. But again, I just like to call it the fat cat tax loophole. For those private equity bankers, they've got it pretty good because they get their income treated as though their income were an investment. And you know, investment gets taxed less than it does income. So if you're a private equity banker and you've worked out this deal and you say, oh, I don't have income, I just have investment, then you only get taxed at 20%. I mean, if they actually taxed you at your income tax rate, well, then you'd be looking at 37%. Of course, with Joe Biden's stuff, it's going to be more like 43%, plus all the state and local taxes. I mean, you're going to be paying a lot. But not if you're a private equity banker. Not if you're a friend of Joe's, I guess. I mean, because then you just get taxed at an investment rate. It's kind of nuts to say the rich need to pay their fair share when the rich people that are backing him and back his party get this wonderfully wild, completely unfair tax break. You know, I don't like taxes anyway. I'd prefer that we be in a flat tax scenario. But so long as we're going to say, let's go after the rich, why are you allowing the rich to continue on with this massive benefit? I mean, really. And you know what? Nobody in Washington understands this stuff, so nobody calls them out. And I would also say that both sides are guilty of this. This is what you call powerful Washington lobbying. These are, private equity investors. They're the people that will help you invest your money. They work on behalf of a lot of pension funds or high net worth individuals. And so they'll have this private equity fund and you put money with them, right? Or your pension puts money with them. And what do? They charge you a percentage of any of the profits that are made, right? That's effectively their income. They get a percentage of the profits that are made by you. Of course, it's your money or your pension fund's money. You're the one taking the risk. The pension fund is the one taking the risk, not the banker. The banker's not putting his money in or her money. The banker says, oh, thank you very much. I'll take that $1 million of yours. I'll put it to work. And oh, by the way, when that $1 million grows, I get a portion of that because I got to get paid. But Uncle Sam, or in this case, Uncle Joe, is only going to charge me 20% because somehow they've convinced Uncle Sam that it's actually investment. Sorry, it's income. Okay, so Uncle Joe over there, he's not treating anything, nor does he intend to, like actual income. So it's treated as investment, and that means, you know what that means? It means New York City firefighters get taxed at a higher rate than the Steve Schwartzmans of the world. Nothing against Steve Schwartzman. And by the way, he's no fan of Joe Biden's. I'm pretty sure about that. Again, pointing out that this kind of works on both sides. But you've got people with a lot of money that are getting taxed at a far lower rate because of this loophole. And you know what? Nobody is doing anything about it. And that's pretty messed up, right? I mean, it's investing. It's investment. That's a line of you know what. This is what you call income. So I do want to know why there's this change. Like why is it that the billionaires get to get away with this while the firefighters actually have to pay actual income tax? I mean, what's so special about a private equity banker, right? Why shouldn't everybody who has their own business then say, treat it as an investment as opposed to income? This is so, even, by the way, it's rare that I agree with the Washington Post, but even the Washington Post has a piece on this saying this is just nuts. I mean, in the meantime, they've got all these IRS agents, right, that are going to go out there and allegedly collect all the money. I mean, they might need to collect from Biden himself, according to one new report that came out, reported in the New York Times, because he's out there using the S-Class Corporation to save himself 500 grand. And apparently that wasn't so kosher. We shall see. But that's the report out there right now. Look, the Republican Party is warning that we're going to have a problem because you will have an army of auditors that Biden is putting together. And of course, the House Ways and Means Committee is quite disturbed from that. I'm going to read you that statement because they say, while Democrats seek to give the IRS a blank check to build an army of IRS auditors, Republicans want to pass taxpayer protections and restore trust in government. Well, wouldn't that be nice? I mean, wouldn't that be nice if actually the government would let us, as Americans, have a little bit of freedom in all this to keep what we earn? You know I don't like taxes. So in some ways, I don't begrudge the private equity bankers for doing what they need to do and trying to make sure that they pay less. And I understand, I'm somewhat sympathetic with it, but I just want to point out the inconsistencies here. It is not right to say, hey, you billionaires over there that are helping me out in Washington and helped me get to the Oval Office and are helping all of us here on Capitol Hill, we're going to go easy on you. But you firefighters, you teachers, you police officers, well, you got to pay the full boat. I mean, it's just not right. It's not fair. And so it doesn't sit well with me because you know how much I believe in equality. You know how much I believe in equity. And again, I think that the most sort of equal way to probably go about all of this really is just to have a flat tax and say everybody's going to pay the same. I mean, 61% of Americans right now pay absolutely no federal tax whatsoever. None. So you get a lot of people living pretty high on the hog. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, Cori Bush, Bernie Sanders, all of them, they want to make sure that somehow that continues forever. And then you've got Joe Biden doing his part to placate them, right? So this is what I call one big giant mess. And there's going to be no placating them because, listen, this crisis right now keeps growing. This crisis that our country is facing in terms of this class warfare. This class warfare is quite real, and it's playing out in different ways. I mean, one of the ways it's playing out, of course, is at the border with Mexico. And I feel terrible for those poor people that have come here. I feel terrible for the people in Del Rio, Texas, the Americans that are having to deal with all this. I feel terrible seeing this mass amount of human tragedy. But from a political perspective, look, let's just call it what it is. Joe Biden right now is going from bad to worse. We just went through Afghanistan, which was a total disaster. I mean, I was actually really affected by that emotionally. I was really upset repeatedly. And I don't always get that way. I would say that, you know, I've been in this business a long time and I've seen a whole lot of stuff. But there was something about this, right? I mean, and I was down in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina and saw some terrible things. I've seen extraordinary levels of poverty all over the world. And yet, when I saw those people clinging to the plane, when I saw those images coming to us from Afghanistan, when I saw the horror at the Kabul airport, with 9 of our service members dying in that suicide attack, I mean, I felt awful. And you know, I think everybody felt that way. I don't think that this was a political thing. This was just an American thing. And we did not like seeing that. And now you've got the situation at the border. So it's like this 1-2 punch, right? You look at what's happening with all these Haitians down in Del Rio, Texas, and no matter which way you slice it, the president is not coming out ahead here because his own party is furious that he's not taking more people into the country. I mean, that's where the Democrat Party is right now. They're really angry. Ilhan Omar is saying that this is effectively a kind of systemic racism, that Haiti is so poor compared to the U.S., and thus we need to do everything we can to bring the people from Haiti. Look, I would love to bring everyone here. Let me just say that. Like, I'm a pretty generous person and I want to do whatever I could do. And I think Americans in general are that way. We want to help. Yet we also realize our own limitations, and we understand that there's got to be some kind of semblance of order here, right? Law and order. And yet then you've got Chuck Schumer out there saying, oh, we should just ignore the Supreme Court law. He's telling Biden, you know, you've got to do what you can to make sure that these people are coming in as opposed to staying in Mexico. It's a law that actually the Supreme Court now agreed with. And so the idea that a sitting U.S. senator is saying, hey, ignore that because it's the humanitarian thing to do. I mean, this is a little bit wacky, right? And not to mention the math. Can we just talk about numbers? I realize nobody in Washington, D.C. like understands numbers or understands math, but this doesn't really add up, right? I mean, they've been telling us that there were 15,000 people there in Del Rio, and then we heard from the White House that they had sent roughly 1,000 back in a plane to Haiti. And so now the governor of Texas, Governor Abbott, is saying there's about 8,000 there. So I'm just curious, because if there were 15,000 and you sent 1,000 away, that would bring you to 14,000, right? So why are there only 8,000? What happened to all those other thousands? I mean, where'd they go, right? What's really going on? And we've gotten a lot of reports, including from the Associated Press, that's quoted 2 U.S. officials saying that these migrants are being transported throughout the U.S. So why isn't anybody coming absolutely positively clean about that? Because I think that they're scared. I think that the White House is quite fearful, knowing that this is like no win. I mean, independents are sitting there asking the question, what's going on? You have conservatives that are saying, hey, we still want a wall. And then you have liberals that are saying, well, we should just bring them all here. So everyone is mad. Everyone is mad. And it makes sense then when you see the polling data that you have seen. I mean, I don't even think that all of this is reflected in that polling data. What's reflected is Afghanistan. So this is going to get worse for Joe Biden. And he may try and punt and blame Kamala Harris, but it's not going to fly. I mean, the buck does stop with him, and Americans will hold him responsible for this. You can't turn around and, blame the other guy. The other guy who's gone now and is apparently more popular than President Biden. I mean, we saw in a Gallup poll just the other day that they were getting quite close. The approval rating for President Biden was actually just points away from where it was with Donald Trump. And Donald Trump never had a very high approval rating, right? He never had that honeymoon, so to speak, that presidents often enjoy. So it's been plummeting. And then there was a Rasmussen poll. And then there was a Harvard-Harris poll. I mean, all indicating that people really don't like Biden right now. So it seems that there is a bit of, shall we say, how do you say, buyer's remorse. the Rasmussen poll, like I said, and the Harvard-Harris poll, all of these now looking as though they're in Trump's favor. This is why, you know what, you've got to vote policy. I realize he did a lot of things that people really didn't like, and the tweets were bad, but what I would say, no matter what happens in the future, what I would like to see Americans do, I mean, yes, I would like to see everybody conduct themselves as professionally as possible, but I'd also like to see people really vote for the policies that matter. Don't allow these candidates to hang out in their basements and not tell you what they're really going to do. We need to hold them accountable. We need to have standards. We need to care about international policy and economic policy, because this is what's really going to be the biggest predictor of our success and our safety going forward. Speaking of our economic success, I don't know if you've been watching the markets. It looks as though we are going to close the day higher, closing out the day higher, the weekend higher, although not great. I mean, we were a little bit, I guess, just sort of treading water there. NASDAQ was a little bit lower. S&P barely higher. Dow Jones Industrial Average barely higher. You have a lot of companies right now, from Nike to FedEx, to Costco, all coming out and they're warning of inflation, right? They're very, very concerned about inflation because we've got all this money printing going on. It leaves us in a little bit of a tricky spot. The Federal Reserve theoretically is going to be there, of course, right? I mean, they're there like forever. They don't want to go anywhere else. So they're there printing money, buying up bonds, giving every indication that they're going to continue to be supportive. I mean, don't forget, they were there telling the market on Wednesday, sort of, if you read through the lines, yeah, we'll still be here. I mean, it's like a little kid. I don't know if this is ever, if you're a parent, you probably have had this happen to you, where they say, can I stay up? Can I watch that TV show? And as a parent, you say, okay, maybe, because you just kind of don't really want to deal with it. And the child goes, whoopee, like they're so excited, right? They're so excited. I mean, how many times has that happened? It's kind of like exactly what happened in the markets, because the markets were like, yippee, you know what? The Fed's going to keep being there, and they're going to keep printing money, and things are going to be good. And the Fed just didn't really want to tell us exactly what is going on, because maybe they don't even know. I mean, they'd like to begin this tapering. Theoretically, they should begin it by November 2nd, but they didn't tell us that. And they didn't tell us by how much they were going to do it. So like I've said all along, I mean, and maybe they're kind of offering a little bit more now, we're going to keep a little romance in the equation, right? With the Federal Reserve, they don't have to tell us literally everything. People can read between the lines, and that's exactly what investors did. So what did you see? Big day on Wednesday, Thursday, and again, muted today, in part because of what's happening in China, in part because of their clamping down on crypto, which has people concerned, and of course, Evergrande, whether or not it's going to, in the next 29 days, be able to make its bond payment. Could you see a Lehman-like event? I don't think you will, over in China, but these are some of the fears that are out there. And that is causing, the market to say, well, we're going to probably need the Fed. We want to make sure that they're continuing to be there. The problem with having the Fed there, of course, as you've heard me explain before, and what we're seeing reflected from Costco, Nike, FedEx, many, many companies have told us this now, is that by printing so much money, you run the risk of inflation. Not just the risk. I mean, we have inflation, right? Inflation is here. I told you last summer we're going to get it. And sure enough, we get a ton of it right now, and I suspect it's going to get a lot worse. So, you want to keep an eye on this market. I think you still want to be invested, actually, until that 10-year treasury yield starts getting really, really high, I still like this market right now. And I think it is a good way in some respects to hedge inflation. But inflation's here. I was at my local restaurant the other day and the other night, and they used to have a free appetizer that would come with the entree. That's no more. There's no more free appetizer. Those are gone. The entree prices have gone up. And look, I mean, once they change the menus, it's kind of hard to change back, right? That's sort of how inflation gets kind of entrenched. Because once prices go up, it's hard for them to go back. Gas prices are different. Those can certainly fluctuate, and we're used to that at the gas station. Home prices even can fluctuate a bit, and we're somewhat used to that. After all, we went through 2008. But in general, once things start going up, it's very hard to have them go back down. And the same is true with wages, although I'd be happy to see those wages go up. They're not going up enough. They're going up a little bit, but not going up enough to keep up with inflation. In fact, real wages are down 1.2%. So if you think about this in terms of your own planning and your own eventual retirement, which I hope you're doing, then you want to make sure that you're not going to have to work for the rest of your life. But if there's this much inflation, then how do you do that, right? What do you do if suddenly a cup of coffee is $36 at Starbucks instead of, what is it now, 5, 6, maybe 7 with tax for the latte, for the triple latte? Well then, if prices go up that much, then you're in a very different scenario. And so you need to protect yourself. By the way, I'm joking a little bit about the coffee, but not entirely. I mean, think about the value, the purchasing power of the US dollar. It is 15% of what it was in 1972. Okay? Remember that statistic and just know that you want to be prepared for a declining US dollar. It's been declining all week, and I think it'll continue declining. I mean, until the Fed says we're going to raise rates, you've got an inflationary environment. So you want to hedge that out. You want to protect your portfolio. I mean, one of the best ways to do that, in my view anyway, and one of the things that I do is I invest in gold. I mean, precious metals in general are pretty good. I still like equity investments. I actually like commodities as well, but gold is one of those things that really helps to even out some of the fluctuations that you can see in the market. I mean, when things get really, really bad, what do people do? They tend to go to gold. And so I like the ability to be able to sleep at night. So if you're investing in the equity market, you want to be able to counter that with another position elsewhere. And that's why I like having a gold portfolio. And it helps sort of achieve some of that diversification. And if you're interested in doing this, I've actually had this up on the screen for a bit now, call Legacy PM Investments. My friends over at legacypminvestments.com, 866-589-0560 is the phone number. They've been in business for more than 40 years, and they can help navigate this for you because you might want to own actual gold, or maybe you want a gold IRA, or maybe you want gold in a safe deposit box somewhere. This is, it's tricky stuff, but they can help you, and I would encourage you to give them a ring. They also have a free investing guide that you can download on their website, legacypminvestments.com, and I would also give them a ring. Give them a ring. You can tell them that I sent you. That would be great. But again, 866-589-0560. But these markets in general, I would just say are okay, but there's a risk out there. There's a risk out there that could come from Joe Biden and the Democrats and this desire to just tax. If you tax corporations, well, that's going to have a negative effect on earnings, right? Because the money's got to come from somewhere. I mean, you can't just tax more and expect profits to be as high and therefore valuations in the stock market to be as high. So a lot of companies will make decisions. I mean, I noticed back in the Obama era, a lot of companies, they hightailed it out of the country, right? They relocated to Ireland, where it's 12.5% corporate tax because they didn't want to pay the onerous taxes here. And so there were all these mergers that were happening on the fly. I call them shotgun marriages because you'd have, some company buying up another company in Ireland, an American company, buying an Irish company so that they could benefit from the low tax rate. And that's natural, right? This is partly what Yellen is trying to fight because this is going to happen. The good thing about the previous administration was they brought all that money back onshore. And that was, in my view, a really brilliant thing to do. You incentivized American corporations to come home back to America, to build factories here, to bring your capital back here. And yet now we're possibly driving them away again if they're successful with higher corporate taxes. Because why would you want to be doing all that business here, right? And think about right now how less competitive we will be. Look at our corporate tax rate, which is going to be higher than China's, and it's going to be higher than Sweden's, and it's going to be higher than Russia's. I mean, my gosh, why are they doing that? Why make us less competitive? Why not? Why not like turn this thing on its head, right? And try and think about it the other way. Why not say, we want to empower every American to have the most opportunity possible. And we're going to do that by actually offering tax cuts to families, to businesses, so that there can be more enterprise, more activity here. And let's do other innovative things like offer education, better education programs like charter schools and vouchers, because clearly the public school system is not working, especially in a lot of inner cities in America. So there's a lot of things you could do that you should be doing to sustain your economy. But that's not what they're talking about. And so when I say this market is looking good, I do think it's looking good. I like this market still. I don't think that we're going to have an economic crash unless, of course, we get all these higher taxes. So the one big risk right now to this market is the idea that they get through this tax hike. Now, Senator Joe Manchin, who's like a hero right now in my book because he's willing to stand up to all these people and stand up for what he believes in as opposed to being so drawn to party lines, he hopefully will be in the way of this. But this is why 22 is so important. This is actually why 22 is really important, because people need to think about the policies that are going to matter to them. Really. That's what's important. You know, personality, I get it, can be kind of a distraction, and certainly it was in 2020. But, you know, we ought to be thinking in a more mature way than that. We ought to be thinking about the policy itself. And we can't have what we just had in Afghanistan. We can't have what we're having right now on the border. And we can't have a society that becomes a socialist style, Venezuelan style economy, right? None of that's going to work. So this is why I'm saying you gotta stick up for the policies that you know are right for you and your family and for future generations. Party stuff aside, forget about it. Do what you think is right. A quick reminder, everyone, I really want you right now to go to trishintel.com. Sign up for my newsletter there. Sign up for the podcast there. You can subscribe again at trishintel.com. Don't let them silence us. You know I have a lot to say. I know you have a lot to say. I want you to have a direct connection with me. So you can do that on my website at trishintel.com. I want to thank you for tuning in, and I will be right back here with you for the Trish Regan Show again on Monday. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.